Hey guys, Greg Denning here. I'm super excited to start this motivation journey together. It's interesting that motivation is one of the least understood and I think least utilized things that we have access to, the source of energy and awesomeness. And I didn't know that early on. I actually ended up coming across energy and motivation principles by accident because I was so desperate, you guys. When I was out on my own, so I grew up kind of discouraged, just going along good days, bad days, for a while because broken family and fighting and contention and poverty, and I guess maybe most days were more negative and less motivational. But then, especially when I ended up out on my own, so I'm like 16 years old, 17 years old. Literally just trying to find out how am I going to get my next meal? How can I earn enough money at this really cruddy job I have? And how can I go to school and try to get an education? How can I make friends? How can I, and just the grind of trying to be on your own and man, try to make things work when you're 16, 17 years old. And fortunately I had these mentors would come along occasionally that would just reach out to me. They just were genuinely awesome human beings who would just say, hey, I noticed you seem like you're struggling. Can I help? And there was opportunities where they jumped in and helped. And those were like these rays of sunshine on dark, cloudy days. And it felt like for a long time that I was in the clouds. You guys know what I'm talking about? Maybe you felt that before. I felt like I'd go weeks or months, and you just you're in this constant fog, this fog of desperation and depression and hopelessness, or just blah. That's often the word. As I go speak around the world, I often ask people hey, what do you feel most of the time? What's your predominant emotion? And I want to ask you guys that. What's your predominant emotion? What do you feel most of the time? And the answers I get are, well, actually, if I'm honest, I feel frustrated most of the time, or bothered, or irritated, or blah. That's the word I get. They say, I just feel blah. I just not real exciting, not really anything. I just blah. And some people feel sadness a lot of the time. Some people feel depression, or anger, or desperation, or bitterness, right? And so, in fact, on this bitterness, you guys check out my podcast, The School of Awesome Sauce. And you can get it on all the podcast outlets. I'm sharing my stories on there and all my adventures and my journey. And I'm doing a podcast episode about forgiveness and letting go of that bitterness that becomes a poison, literally like a toxin in our bodies. And it cankers our souls and our physical well-being. So we got to let go of that stuff. And so I was in this desperate situation. I was tired of living in the cloud. And then I would read an occasional book here or there. And I'd meet a person occasionally who was like, man, they seem genuinely happy and excited. And I was like, man, I want that. I want to wake up every day excited. And instead of waking up each day and being saddened because the reality is worse than my dreams, right? And then you're discouraged when you wake up instead of excited to wake up. And so I wanted to find those recipes. So principle number 1 that I want to share today about motivation, and I will reemphasize again and again in this motivation journey we're going on, is that motivation is limitless and renewable. And it's not something you either have or you don't, because that was kind of my reality in the beginning. And I think a lot of people believe that, either you have it or you don't. Either you feel motivated or you don't. And there isn't a whole lot you can do about it, right? You wake up and you're like, I either feel motivated today or don't. Or if I'm going along and something happens and I get deflated, then, well, shoot, then I just had another sad, unmotivated day. But what's fascinating is we hold the power. We hold the lever. You've got your hand on that lever of turn it up or turn it down. And most people don't know that. And so they realize they're just going along making decisions, the habits that are turning off their motivation inadvertently. They don't know they're doing it. They're just turning it down, turning it up, turning it down. And they don't know how it's happening. Wow, some days I feel great and some days I feel terrible. Some days I'm totally motivated. Some days I've got nothing. And so the first principle is your hand's on that lever, and you can turn it up as you wish. And I don't know why anyone would purposely turn it down, because we can turn it on and be motivated all the time and excited, right? But it definitely has to do with our mindset and our beliefs and our habits. And so I want you to know right off that you can turn it up. It's renewable and it is limitless. You can access as much or as little as you like. But it is something and somewhat like food. We have to feed it. We have to feed our motivation, just like we have to feed our bodies. And I love to say that when I'm teaching about motivation, I love to tell people like, okay, like you would, there's no way you'd be like, I just am too busy this week. I'm not going to be able to eat. I'll eat a little bit next Saturday. And you go the entire week without eating anything because you're just too busy. You got too much going on. Well, how would you be feeling physically by the end of the week? You're going to feel completely drained. And if you make it to the end of the week, you're going to feel terrible. And you're going to be dragging all week long and you're going to be like, why do I feel so terrible? I just can't get anything done. I can't think clearly. This just isn't working. And it's because our body needs fuel. And in order to be energized physically, which is a gigantic part of motivation, and I will do a series on that, specifically on how the physical condition of our body definitely affects our mind and our motivation. But just like the body needs fuel, so does your motivation. Your motivation needs fuel. And so you have to feed it. And how often do you need to feed it? Well, how often do you need to feed your body? Multiple times throughout the day. And I would say do the same thing. Why not? Why not feed your motivation? Can we see it as like this, I don't know, like this little living being that needs to be fed, right? And if you can see your motivation like this little living being that needs to be fed, like how often are you going to feed it? And the more you feed it, the healthier it is, the more motivated it is. If you can turn up the lever by giving it food, then by all means, my friends, feed that thing, right? We'll go through in this series about things that tank it. So my alarm just went off, which is one of these motivations, right? My alarm goes off with my 3 words and my thing, and mine says lit up and world class, right? It's because of some of the words. Lit up right there is that me for me, like, woo, I'm lit up. And I have another one that says be bold. And so we have these things that we feed it. So feed it often. Feed it with great books, with videos like this, with podcasts, with ideas, with songs, with pictures or images or thoughts or memories that just feed your motivation. Feed it regularly. Like put it on your schedule, put it on your calendar, make a habit of it. I have a huge habit. Like I've been doing this for so many years that my lever is up. My motivation lever is up and I still consistently feed it. And I have that habit of constantly feeding my motivation. So it makes a gigantic and positive difference. So there it is, my friends. Principle number 1. It is in your power. Your hand is on the lever. You can have as much or as little as you want. It is renewable and it needs to be fed. So feed it every day. And I'll tell you what to feed it, give you some specifics. I'll show you what causes people to fail and why many are tanking, and then how to have sustained motivation for the rest of your life. Remember, it is totally possible to be motivated all the time, even in tough situations, right? Even when the clouds seem so dark, you can turn that on and get motivated. So remember, awesome is always an option. Reach upward.